Welcome, everyone, to Roots to Results. My name is Danielle DeRuiter-Williams. I am so excited to have a colleague and now friend of mine here with us today. Roots to Results is an opportunity for us to have conversations with leaders about their experiences, their journey, how their early experiences in life have really shaped how they approach leadership today, how they approach the workplace today, how they approach their decision making, all of those sorts of things. And I come to this having been a leader myself and been an entrepreneur and really peeling back the layers of understanding in terms of how my early conditioning and early structure really shaped the leader that I was and how I was showing up, both to the positive and in ways that were not always necessarily the most beneficial. And so I would like to hand it over really quickly to Monique. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do, and we'll get into our conversation.
Oh, wow. Thank you, first off, for having me and for the invite, Danielle. It's a pleasure. Monique King-Viehland. I'm founder and owner of a consulting firm called Zithande, LLC. Zithande in Akosa means self-love. Chosen for very, very specific reasons out of love for myself. I walked away about 2 years ago now from a 25-year career in housing, community, and economic development, largely in the public and nonprofit sectors with a focus really around housing justice and racial equity. I now run my own firm. I'm a coach or strategic advisor to mostly Black and Brown, BIPOC, queer women and gender nonconforming transgender folk, and providing space to allow them to show up as their most authentic selves. I also do consulting for a variety of different organizations, spread probably equally now between the East and West Coast. And finally, I do public speaking around a variety of different topics and issues. I like to say that my voice is a gift and I like to bring power to the conversation, leveraging that gift. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. And your voice is absolutely a gift. And I am so appreciative and grateful that you're someone that I've had the chance to have in my life over the last couple of years. And since I've only known you for a couple of years, I'm wondering if we could start with you sharing a little bit about little Monique. What was little Monique like?
Ooh, that's a big one. That's like a therapy conversation talking about little Monique. I grew up in Trenton, New Jersey. For those who don't know, that's actually the capital city of the state of New Jersey. It's funny though, it's like less than 80,000 people, really small. And like many capital cities, honestly, suffers from a lot of economic depression, a lot of poverty, and lack of revitalization. But that was my upbringing. I grew up in a household with three and eventually four working adults, yet we were pretty poor. We were two-bedroom apartment with my grandparents, my mother, and then my mother's husband and a second husband. My mother was married three times. She loved being in love. She was quite the romantic. Not always the best choices, but quite the romantic. So we lived in a two-bedroom apartment with roaches and with mice, and it was difficult. And to say that the housing was substandard would be an understatement, but that definitely influenced, I think, why I ended up going into housing to begin with. My mom also had me at 17. My brother at 19. So she was a single parent for a bulk of my childhood growing up before she got married and then remarried and remarried. So, she didn't make a lot of money. She had an associate's degree from community college, but it was challenging. She worked a lot of minimum wage jobs that did not pay enough. And so to say that we struggled would also be an understatement. And I think all of that influenced my perspective on the world. It influenced the work I do, and it influenced what drove me into sort of social justice work and policy to begin with.
Thank you. And we'll get into a few more of those experiences, but I'm curious if you could speak to some of the values or beliefs that you learned through that process of growing up in that environment.
Oh, my mother My mother was one of the hardest working people I know. It's funny, the two license plates, the Hey Sugar in the background, are actually my mom's plates. She passed away in 2019, and Hey Sugar was her favorite phrase. Everybody was my mother's sugar, everybody was her friend. Really outgoing, cared deeply about her community, a really religious woman, and just grounded in the belief that she was going to work hard. And if you work hard, that's how you got things, right? Like that's how you moved forward. She once told me when I was a little kid that some people are destined for greatness and other people are destined to give birth to children who are destined for greatness. And her destiny was the latter. No pressure now on a little kid telling them that, but she meant it. And I will say one of the things that was wonderful about that is my mother truly believed, even till the day she died, that there was nothing I could not do. And so as a child, I believed that there was nothing I could not do as long as I worked hard. And as long as I studied and as long as I did well in school, then I was going to survive, and not only survive, but thrive. And she really believed that despite everything around us that spoke differently. And I think that was the amazing thing about my mom. Her mentorship, her coaching, and her deep seated belief in me almost galvanized a deep seated belief in myself that I know I wouldn't have had without her.
Hmm. I resonate so much with being like the chosen one of your family. And I'm an only child too. And I've spoken about this on other podcasts of sort of there are benefits to that, but also you're hyper focused. And then there's also like, how are you going to be the one to carry on or expand on the legacy? And along with maybe some of that, you said like no pressure. I am curious, did that instill in you sort of a deep sense of responsibility? I know for me, I have a little bent of perfectionism that's come out of this place of pressure. Is there anything to dig into there for you?
No, I mean, it absolutely did, right? I mean, it created a lot of pressure. I felt like often, even as a child, I was making decisions not just for me, but for the whole community, right? Like it was about how I did well in school mattered to my mom, it mattered to my grandparents, it mattered to my stepfather. I'm actually not an only child. It mattered. I have a younger brother, but like the pressures were different. And I think he would agree and say that as well. So, yeah, it created a lot of pressure, and it created expectations that really actually weren't really manageable for a child in a lot of ways, nor were they manageable for an adult. And I think what it also did was, this level of perfectionism, right, is really a vestige in some ways of colonization. And I feel like I have spent years since then, both in therapy and in coaching with myself and with others, trying to undo some of those vestiges of colonization and supremacy, right? Like,
Mhm.
because I think my mom almost had that embedded in her and didn't realize it and turned around and then embedded it in us. And there's one thing was pushing your children to strive. I have two children and I'm pushing them to strive, but I'm also now really being careful to not create additional supremacy and additional pieces of colonization in them, and letting them know that there's not one way to be
Mhm.
successful. There's not one way to thrive, and they don't
Mhm.
have to do it any particular way, and they should do it for themselves, not just for
Yeah.
everybody else. They don't owe me or the culture all of their lives. And I just think that's important to instill in them now. Doesn't mean that I don't want them to be successful, but more importantly, I want them to be happy and
Yeah.
joyful. And I don't want their success to be dependent on what systems and structures that were never built to see them anyway have chosen
Mhm.
to tell them that this is what success should look like.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a beautiful way to take what you've learned in your upbringing and translate it into actually I'm going to do this a bit differently, right? I recognize the ways in which maybe this didn't serve me, and I'm going to offer my children another way or a different way of approaching things while still honoring and recognizing like we are all acculturated into these norms, and it's can be tough work to undo them and dismantle them along the way, especially when we find
Absolutely.
ourselves in institutions that perpetuate those as well. Success is
Yeah.
measured by your ability to continue to do the thing in the way that they want you to do it. And so on your journey to sort of, yeah, this isn't working for me, this isn't serving me. Are there any sort of watershed moments that you had along the way in your professional experiences where you're like, Yeah, no, I can't continue on this way or on this trajectory forward.
Yeah, for sure. I wish that those moments had come earlier, to be honest. They tend to take longer. And I think part of the reason I do coaching now is because I hope to seed the next generation, not just in my children, but in the next generation of Black and Brown leaders who can figure this out sooner, right?
Mhm.
But I think probably I had a series of events that started before the pandemic, which is kind of funny. A lot of people talk about the pandemic as being that sort of watershed moment for a lot of people recently. But in 2018, I ended up in the hospital with a double pulmonary embolism. I had a blood clot on each of my lungs, and they found a third clot in my leg. What had probably happened was the clot in my leg broke apart and traveled through my
Mm.
body. I almost died. And then they did a series of tests, and subsequently, what they found out was that I had blood cancer. The interesting thing about that moment was I had literally just moved my mom from New Jersey to live with us in California to take care of her because she was in end stage renal failure. So
Mhm.
here it is. My mom comes to live with us. We buy this house so that she has space for us. My husband gets into a motorcycle accident, which was a whole nother sort of side thing. And then I get my diagnosis, right?
Yeah.
And here I am. I'm getting the diagnosis because I've had this pulmonary embolism. Things are looking okay. So then I go through a series of tests to be a potential donor for my mom. And that's when they tell me that not only am I not eligible to be a donor, but I have blood cancer.
Mhm.
A year later, my mom passed away and lost
Mhm.
her battle, sorry, with renal failure.
Mhm.
And I remember at that moment, I had been suffering and battling the cancer for a year. I had taken some time off to get my medications right, the oral chemo together, so that my body could actually allow me to still work and do the things I needed to do. I was finally feeling like I was getting some semblance back of normalcy. And then my mom passes away. I take a couple of days off and I go back to work. I haven't even picked up my mom's ashes. So
Yeah.
I don't even have any physical pieces of her left with me. And I remember looking at this desk and it was stacked high with things that needed to be signed, stuff that needed to be processed. I had another complaint filed by someone about something that was happening. It's interesting because I survived more audits in the time that I was executive director of the LACDA than a lot of my white and male counterparts that had come before me, which was interesting since I was the first Black woman in the role. That's neither
Weird.
here nor there, right?
Weird.
So, yeah, strange. Don't know anything about why that would happen. So, I'm looking at another one of these audits. I'm looking at these condolences cards. I still haven't picked up my mom's ashes. And it was this moment where I was like, I can't continue to live like this.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
the North Star, the purpose for why I was doing everything that I was doing was gone from this
Mhm.
earth. And for the
Mhm.
first time, I felt completely untethered to the earth and to the universe. I felt lost because
Mhm.
the guiding star was gone. And I realized that none of these folks, none of these systems cared that my North Star was gone.
Yeah.
They just
Yeah.
wanted me to keep going and keep doing
Right.
all the things that I was doing, and it was a moment where I realized that I deserved better than that. I
Mhm.
deserved a moment to grieve the loss of my mother. I deserved a moment to grieve the loss of my life that would never be the same now because it was
Mhm.
impacted by blood cancer. I deserved a lot more than
Yeah.
what the system was giving me. And at that moment, I decided that I was going to leave a career that
Mhm.
I had been in for almost 20 years at that point. And I had no idea what I was
Yeah.
going to do next. I was in conversations with people about potential jobs, but nothing was significantly on the horizon. All I knew at that moment was I deserved better and that there
Mhm.
had to be another way to still be in the movement and be in the work, but take better care of myself and my family
Mhm.
because the 18 months that I had hoped to spend with her were not the 18 months that I had wanted them to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
something had to give, you know?
Mhm. Mhm. So many directions to go in from that. I am curious in feeling untethered, and I was reflecting recently that several of my friends have lost either one or both of their parents. I am fortunate enough to still have both mine, be they complicated
Mm,
relationships. How did you find a new North Star? Or how did you reimagine or reconnect with the North Star that she still was? She was this whole time, but maybe not on this plane anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it took me a while to realize that she still is the
Yeah.
North Star. But I think what happened was instead of trying to live to do the things that she wanted me to do, I decided to live to do the things that she was not able to do. There was
Mhm,
just a
mhm,
very big shift. So she passed in November of 2019. Then, of course, we go into 2020 and the pandemic. And actually, for me, in some ways, the pandemic, despite the death and the loss and the ugly, was like this really amazing opportunity to sit and stop
mhm,
and grieve and think.
mhm,
And
mhm.
through a lot of grieving and a lot of therapy and some amazing friends and an incredible husband and children in my corner, I realized that my mom was still there. And I can still
Yeah,
feel her. I can feel her now, and sometimes I talk to
mhm.
her when I am
Yeah,
really lost, especially right now. um,
yeah, yeah.
but what I realized was I just decided to change how I was honoring her. And I
Mhm,
decided that from now on, the way that I would honor her was to do the things in my life that she was never able to do, that she didn't have the opportunity to do, which meant re envisioning how I was working. Do I need to
mhm,
be in a 9 to 5 job? Can I still make money and take care of my family and do other things? How can I travel more? How can I enjoy life more? How can I be more present for my children in a way
yeah,
that she was not able to be because she worked 3 and 4 jobs when we were
mhm,
younger? How can
mhm,
I do those things to honor her differently than what I had done up until the point? And so now she's still the North Star, but I think in some ways in a much more powerful way than
mhm,
she even was when she was on the earth, because now I live to honor the way that she would have loved to live if she had had the
mhm,
opportunity and the chance to do it. And I've now recognized that I can both still serve my people and prioritize a life of ease and liberation too. And I did
mhm.
not realize that before she died.
Yeah, you're able to sort of relate to her in an expansive way versus sort of the way that systems restrict our ability to be who we wanna be and live how we wanna live. Now it's like the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and also
yeah,
it's like a rethinking of manifestation. Like I think when she
right.
was like, you got to get a good education, you got to go to college, you got to do this, you got to work hard for our people, right? Like what she really wanted was for me to be happy. What
Mhm,
she really wanted was for me to be safe. And
mhm,
so instead of trying to dictate, though, the journey to get there, what I
yeah,
now just try to manifest and focus on is what she wanted was ease and liberation.
yeah,
What I
yeah,
want from my children is ease and liberation. What I'm not going to do is dictate for them how they choose to walk the path to get there. And what I
mhm,
don't focus on so much now is the journey, right? Like I just know what I'm trying to create and manifest. I'm not trying to control every step of how I get there anymore. And I think that is an important distinction, right? There's a falsehood in our lives where we think there's so much that we can control. And I think for me growing up, it was a trauma response. Trauma
mhm,
response for me was, okay, now I need to control everything. I'm going to try to put all the things in place to protect myself as much as possible. What 2018 and 2019 showed me is that there are so many things that you cannot control. And that was
yeah,
before we went into a global pandemic, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
the idea of really managing more intently my sphere of influence and span of control and understanding
mhm,
what is controllable and what is not is important, and I think has served me better on my journey now. And honestly, I think it'll serve all of us right now more than
mhm,
anything because there's a lot outside of our control these days. And we need to know that and acknowledge that.
yeah. Know that and acknowledge it, and also still keep a sense of this notion of like, what does a full, whole life look like to me? And it's not going to be exactly how it looks like to other people. One of the things I have on the horizon is I'm launching a coaching cohort called Soulfully Actualized. And the whole idea is let's define what self actualization means for you as an individual. Maybe the pie of your life, if the sliver of work has changed over time and you want it to be smaller, maybe it's bigger, who you are or who you want to be is going to ebb and flow over time, and it's also not going to look exactly like the people who are
That's right.
next to you. But how can we still, in the midst of all of the things that are happening, right? Look for ways to live out the life that our souls were brought here to live out and self determine what that looks like for us. There was a conversation that you and I had shortly after you had left your last gig and started your own thing. And I reference this in multiple conversations all the time when folks are like, how's the like doing entrepreneurship again going? And I'm like, that's really nice. I work like 20 hours a week and I take lots of naps and I take the day after the full moon off because I know I don't sleep and all of these things, right? But I remember you had shared, a friend of yours was like, well, when are you going to scale and da 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 da, and what are your goals to be able to grow? And you said, I don't want to be big, I want to be free.
That's
And
right.
that just stuck with me and continues to be something that I think about when I consider what I'm going to take on and put on my plate. And I'm curious, now that you're a year past that, because it's been about a year, it sounds like that still feels right to you. That still feels aligned to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So next month is the 2-year anniversary of my business, and that still feels exactly right to me. Like, again, my focus is on ease and liberation. I want to be free. And what I know to be true is that I can make money, I can serve the movement, right, in a very powerful way. And I can still take every Friday off and every Monday morning. And I can make volleyball games now. And I can pick up my kid after school and spend at least 10 minutes before the teenager zones out, finding out how the day went and what's going on. I can be free. I
Mhm.
still have agency, even though there's tons of things that are outside of my control. And it's true,
Mhm.
I have no intention of scaling my business. I love the clients that I work with. I love that we have had such profound conversations and dialogues over the last several months since the election. I love that I have clients who sometimes we get on phone calls and we cry because we
Mhm.
recognize the pain that is happening now and that is still yet to come for many of the groups of people that we work with and that we're trying to serve. I love that those are the people in my life. Those are the clients that I'm lucky enough to work with. And I love that it's just me in my bare feet in my home office looking at my mom's license plates in the rear view, if you will,
Mhm.
right? Like I do feel free.
Mhm.
And it's scary because it's every year, you never know what is going to happen and what's on the horizon, especially right now when people don't even want to use words like justice and equity
Right.
and woke and race and all these things, right? And yet, I am choosing to believe that this life that I have created will continue, and
Mhm.
everything in terms of, I'll do an Urban Institute reference, everything in the data and the evidence says that this life that I'm creating is still going to continue and it's only going to grow in the freedom that it allows, but not
Mhm.
necessarily in the business. And I'm
Yeah.
perfectly okay with that. That's actually
Yeah.
what I want.
Yeah, yeah. And I think a lot of us came out of the pandemic with a new, and you obviously prior to that, right? For you, it was like a 4-year process of undoing with just a reshuffling of those priorities. I came out of the pandemic. Midway through the pandemic, I left the company that I co-founded, right? I was so burned out. I was
Mm.
like, I can't do this anymore. I am not the person I want to be. My face is puffy. I'm so racked with anxiety. I can't sleep. Like, and I'm the boss. I'm one of the bosses, right?
Yeah,
Like, so much pressure to be responsible for the livelihood of 20 people every month,
that's a
right?
lot.
And it's a lot. And I was like 37, right? And
Whew.
so yeah, to sit with that and now look at what it looks like to be a fuller version of myself where I sleep peacefully most nights, right? I spend time with my dog, I work out, I make meals that are delicious. I'm not just ordering in every other meal because I'm too stressed to think about what I want to eat. It's a beautiful place to be in, and especially as Black women, when the entire world tells us that we're the workhorses of our society. it's so beautiful to one exist in that sense of ease for myself, but also be in relationship with people who are actively cultivating that for themselves as well. We have no other choice at this point.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
really love the idea of just being able to say, no,
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm not
Mhm.
going to do that, but thank you. Nope, I'm not
Mhm.
going to go to that place, but thank you. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it does, I think two things are really key, right? I've had to really shift, and this is hard for little Monique. Little Monique and I have lots of conversations around this, right? Like, when you grow up in poverty, scarcity is a real thing. And that scarcity mindset stays with you. And then layer on top of that systems of inequity, right? That make you feel like imposter syndrome is real. You don't belong at the table. For the record, imposter syndrome is bullshit. Of course, we don't belong at the tables because they were never created for us to begin with, right? But nonetheless, right, it creates scarcity that makes it very fearful, right? And that was before
Mhm.
all of the things that are happening now. But I try
Mhm.
really hard to stay in a space of abundance and belief. And
Mhm.
the other thing is, I just joined this year of manifestation course
Ooh.
that a woman, Sharon Escadani, is offering. And she's incredible. She was the one who led my decolonized coaching certification program. One of the things she talks about is in manifestation, one of the challenges is also seeing the things that have already come and recognizing that you're on a journey, but the end result of manifestation is actually happening all along. And so, one of the
Mhm.
things I've really been trying to do is spot the ease and liberation in my current existence as I continue to move towards growing more in the space of ease and liberation. Those two things can both be true. I am
Yeah.
finding currently ease and liberation in the business that I've built, but I'm looking
Mhm.
forward to a life of even more ease and
Mhm.
liberation down the road, right?
Mhm.
But that means that scarcity cannot drive. And so I often have to say to little Monique, I love you dearly, but I'm gonna need you to sit in the back seat. You don't get to navigate, you don't get
Mhm.
to drive, right? You can register, you can tell me what you're concerned about, you can scream because I know it's coming from a space of love and care and protection, but you don't get to drive, babe, because we
Mhm.
can't live in scarcity and still manifest ease and freedom.
Yeah. So much of that work is interrupting and undoing those limiting beliefs that became a part of our internal dialogue, which I don't actually hear my voice in my head. I don't know if you're part of that camp that actually hears your voice or not.
I
I
do
don't
not
hear my
actually hear
voice.
my own voice.
Me
No,
either. Okay.
no,
Soul
I do
sister.
not
Because
actually hear
what
my
is
own
that?
voice.
How would you ever get anything done? Anyways. But those limiting beliefs become, to your point, this unconscious like driver of our lives. And to counteract those, I know such a critical, effective practices, affirmations that really counter those. And so I'm curious if you were to give little Monique one or two affirmations, what would those be?
Oh, that's interesting. I, in my coaching certification, one of the things that one of the other coaches, we did peer coaching, said to me once was, I want you, when you go on your vacation, to take little Monique on vacation with you. Because one of the things that we learn in parts work, right, is that all the different things that develop, like the part of you that worries, the part of you that criticizes, right, all of those are grounded in where little Monique was at a point in time. And what
Mhm.
actually happens is that part stops at that point. And what she was trying to teach me was that little Monique had no realization of actually what big Monique's life was like. And so, two summers ago, when we went on a road trip vacation for 10 days with my children looking at me very bizarrely, as well as my husband, I took little Monique on vacation with us. So, I would take time during the vacation to just sit with her and say, hey, I don't know if, but we go on RV trips now and we have a travel trailer and we have also gone other places. We've been to the Dominican Republic, we've been to Greece, we've done these things. Like, part of it is sharing what life really is like with her. And so I think if there's a first affirmation, it's acknowledging what is true, really what is true. The
Mhm.
world is on fire, literally and figuratively, right now.
Yeah.
And you have an amazing life. You
Mhm.
have beautiful, smart, incredible children. You have an amazing husband who would walk through fire for you. You have a cohort of girlfriends who sometimes feel so incredible that I'm like, they're like a magical coven, right? And I include you, Danielle, in like the amazing amount of feminine energy that is wrapped around and protect that I lean on and lean into on a regular basis. Like the
Mhm.
affirmation is see the future and life
Mhm.
for what it really is good, bad, and ugly, but see truth and tell
Mhm.
yourself truth, not lies, right? Because
Mhm.
that's the most important thing. The second thing is you cannot operate in scarcity. I know
Mhm.
why she wants to operate in scarcity because I remember being hungry on the
Yeah.
floor and
Yeah.
crying. Like literally, I remember that.
Mhm.
I remember going to get water in the middle of the night and turning on the light and the roaches scatter and there's nothing there anyway for you to get.
Mhm.
I remember that. That is not our life anymore. And I
Mhm.
need her to understand that because you can't manifest if you operate in a place of scarcity. So we have to let that go too. And then I
Mhm.
think the most important thing for her is to remember that we are not alone.
Mhm.
Like this world will try to make you feel like you are minimized, you are alone, you are nothing. No one will ever understand you. And in actuality, there are some amazing, incredible, particularly Black and Brown women out there, my sisters who show up on a regular basis, and they are not biologically family, but they are absolutely chosen family who hold me up when I can't hold myself. And it's
Mhm.
important for her to remember that as well. So those are, I think, some of the affirmations and things that I'd want her to remember and know, and that I tell her all the time.
Mhm. Mhm. That's honestly a beautiful place for us to end. I am so grateful for spending a short but long amount of time with you today. Is there anything, where can folks find you? Is there anything that you're excited about coming up in the next few months for you that you'd like to
Yeah.
share?
Folks can find me on my website, MoniqueKing-Viehland.com. Come on over. I think what I'm mostly excited about is this year is about growing my speaking vertical. So I'm really looking for more opportunities to talk to teams, to do retreats, to come into organizations. I love strategic advising. I love consulting, but I really want to get out there and use my voice. A couple months ago, I did something called Fearless Fire where I gave a speech that talked about life and like how my life has changed, but in some ways grown and is even better since my diagnosis and like how I live life differently based on that. Like, I really want to be able to create more opportunities to bring my voice into organizations, into spaces, and to again continue to inspire and transform. So, I would love to be able to do more of that. So, if folks are interested, and having me come do that, please reach out. And again, you can find me at MoniqueKingVieland.com. And thanks, Danielle, for the opportunity.
Thank you. It's great to see you. And this was Roots to Results. Thank you all for joining us, and I'll see you on the next episode.